What's up, everyone? Welcome to Natural Languages and welcome to class number 3 of this course for teachers, this comprehensible input course for teachers. And in today's video, I'm gonna change things up a little bit because, it's just gonna look exactly like the previous two, but today I'm gonna have a student on the other side, right? Who's also going to be a teacher. So she's going to ask me questions about teaching. She's going to ask me questions about why I'm doing the things I'm doing. I'm going to be explaining things to her, and she's going to be the student in the Spanish class. So I think overall, it's going to be even more useful for you because you'll get to experience it from her perspective as well. Okay. And yeah, so with that being said, let's get into it and hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Perfect. So we'll continue with the story. Yeah. And like I said, I'll be using Spanish all the time when it comes to the story. Yeah, but I'll use English to tell you about the things I'm doing as a teacher, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, but usually in my classes, I'm speaking Spanish all the time. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Unless there's a specific word that is really hard to find a gesture or a picture to help the student understand what I mean. In that case, I would use translation, but that's like the last resource, if possible, okay?
Okay.
Because I want you to understand what I'm talking about in Spanish, thanks to the context or gestures or images, if possible. Yeah, perfecto. Entonces, continuamos con la historia de Juan. ¿Sí? Con Juan, que habla 5 idiomas. Portugués, porque vivió en Brasil. ¿Sí? Francés, porque le gusta ver la televisión francesa.
Okay.
Yeah, and here in this case, you know what le gusta means, but you can always go with, I don't know, with a heart. And that's, just to help your student understand what you mean by that.
Right.
Because then televisión en francesa, again, thanks to the similarities between English and Spanish, I don't need to explain that, right? And then the context and so on. Perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, you're so right.
Muy bien. Y Aclam, Juan habla español, ¿sí?
Sí.
Y mi pregunta, Aclam, ¿sí? Es,
Okay.
¿por qué habla Juan español? ¿O por qué habla español Juan? ¿Sí? Porque, and now, just one little thing. Yes, you see, this is sort of an open question, right? And I personally don't like to force output, especially at the beginning, right? So like when I ask you questions, especially at the beginning, most times they're going to be questions like, ¿en qué ciudad de Brasil vivió Juan? And I'll give you options like Sao Paulo, Rio, Brasilia. So all you have to tell me is one word or just like a quick answer that is not going to force you to consciously think about your answer, right? But here, which is a sort of an open question, well, I don't know yet what your level is, so you might be able to answer it. But I'm guessing if you want to answer like an open question like this one, you'll have to think about the specific words, and I don't want to encourage that. Okay, so I'll give you options as well. So, ¿por qué habla español Juan?
Okay, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Okay. Pero español, este es su lenguaje maternal.
Ah, perfecto, perfecto. Sí. Oh, muy bien, Akla, muy bien.
Okay.
Claro, Juan es de Barcelona. Sí, sí, claro. Perfecto. Porque español es su lenguaje o idioma, sí, materno. Muy bien. Perfecto.
Okay.
Ah, muy bien, Akla, muy bien.
Thank you.
And you see what I mean. You're able to answer it actually. So at this, so I don't want to force output, but at the same time, if you feel confident that you can answer it, I'm fine with it, of course. Yeah.
I will do my best.
Yeah, but the point is,
I'm not gonna.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not gonna stress myself out
Yeah,
about grammar, so I'm just gonna say I'm gonna make mistake about like grammar specifically.
perfect. Yeah, but that's a good point. That's something I like to tell my students beforehand, that don't worry about grammar and so on. Yeah, that's perfect. And yeah, but the point I wanted to make is I want you to try it if you want to. That's perfectly fine. But what I'm trying to avoid is for you to start consciously thinking about the specific words you're going to use. So it's going to take you a long time to come up with the answer. You know what I mean? But,
Okay, yeah.
but that was pretty fluent, so no problem. Perfecto.
All right.
Juan habla español porque es su lenguaje o idioma materno. Perfecto. Sí, es un hombre que vive en Barcelona. Vale. Y ahora, una pregunta interesante, Aklam.
Okay.
Juan habla japonés. ¿Sí? Y la pregunta es, ¿por qué?
All right.
¿Por qué habla japonés Juan? Porque vivió en Japón, porque le gusta ver, bueno, espera, porque vivió en Japón, o porque le gusta ver anime, ¿sí?
Okay.
No sé, porque...
Okay, I'm trying to think about.
Okay. O porque... porque tiene un amigo japonés. ¿Sí?
Yo tratando... ¿por qué le gusta ver anime?
Vale, perfecto.
Maybe.
Sí, sí. Le gusta ver anime, sí. Muy bien. Y la serie favorita de anime de Juan es, and yeah, just a quick break, like obviously with over time, with more experience, you get used to using words that your students are going to understand because of the similarities again. This really depends on the language, but la serie favorita. So first of all, the context of the story helps you understand that we're talking about watching anime, of course, right? So when I talk about serie favorita, you perfectly understand what it means. Yeah, but like the whole idea the whole point that I keep making is that you need to use whatever is in your control to help your students understand, and that being the context of the story, the similarities between languages, pictures like here, gestures if necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, fully.
Right. And that's, well, you tell me as a student, but that really makes a difference, right? Because you thanks to that, you're able to understand what the story is about, which is the most important thing.
It makes so much different, really. Perfect. I mean, I can really get like the meaning of some words from the context, just as you said.
Exactly. And yet the even better thing is, I mean, we'll get into more details into the story, but I love to introduce like science fiction details and crazy stuff, because in a weird way, the more bizarre the story is, the easier would be for you to remember first of all, and then to sort of picture the story in your head while we're creating it, as opposed to focusing on grammar, on form, on the specific words, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so expensive to only think about the grammar. I mean, I really love this method because I mean, it's the same way I've learned English. I never stress myself out about the grammar. I just listen, like simple stories and things like that.
Exactly.
So I definitely you.
Yeah, and you're so immersed in the story that you kind of forget that you're listening to a different language.
Exactly.
Obviously, my job is to make it comprehensible, because if I don't do that, you know, it's just going to be noise for you, right? Okay. Pues, la serie favorita de anime de Juan es una serie, ¿sí?, sobre un rinoceronte, por ejemplo, ¿sí?
Okay, never heard of it, but okay.
No, I'm making it up. Un rinoceronte muy pequeño, ¿sí? ¿Vale?
Right.
Que vive en Osaka, en Japón, ¿sí? All of this I'm making it up, obviously, on the fly. And again, once you start creating your stories in class, you get better at improvising and as well.
All right.
Un rinoceronte muy pequeño que vive en Osaka, Japón, ¿sí? Y que tiene muchos problemas. ¿Vale? Pobre rinoceronte tiene muchos problemas, ¿sí? Y la serie se llama... ¿Cómo se llama la serie? ¿Tienes alguna idea? Yo no soy un experto en anime, no sé. Estoy pensando en el nombre rinoceronte y un nombre que suene a japonés, ¿sí? Como, no sé, Rinosaki, por ejemplo. ¿Sí?
Yeah, okay, Rinosaki. That's lovely.
Por ejemplo. Entonces, sí, la serie favorita de anime de Juan es Rinosaki. Sí.
Perfecto, ok.
Perfecto. Y la serie Rinosaki es muy larga, sí. La serie es muy larga, sí. Tiene muchos episodios, ¿vale? No sé, por ejemplo, tiene 15 temporadas, ¿sí?
Muy interesante.
De 20 episodios por temporada. ¿Sí? O sea, un total de 300 episodios. ¿Sí?
Ok.
Tiene mucho contenido para escuchar japonés, Juan. ¿Sí? Perfecto.
Right.
Muy bien. Y finalmente, Juan habla italiano. ¿Sí? Juan habla italiano porque... ¿Por qué habla italiano? Porque vivió en Italia, porque ve la televisión italiana, porque tiene un amigo en Italia, porque... No sé,
creo que...
¿su padre es italiano? No.
how do we say watch?
No, porque ve la televisión.
Ok, ya. Televisión italiano.
Televisión italiana, perfecto. Y sus programas favoritos de la televisión italiana, Aklam, son series, series, documentales, no sé, deportes, ¿sí?
Okay.
Como fútbol, baloncesto, deportes, ¿sí? ¿Cuáles son sus programas favoritos de la televisión italiana? Series, documentales, deportes, comedias, ¿sí?
Yo creo, pero la lenguaje maternal de Juan es español,
Sí,
pero
sí.
italiano es muy difícil para aprender.
Claro, porque es similar a español, ¿sí?
Similar.
Son dos idiomas de origen latín, ¿sí?
Ok.
Como francés, portugués, ¿sí? Perfecto. Entonces, Juan, su idioma materno es español, pero es un poco más fácil aprender italiano porque son dos idiomas similares. Vale.
Y un poco más fácil.
Exacto,
Exactamente.
exacto. Muy bien, Dacla, muy bien. Y sus programas favoritos de la televisión italiana son series, documentales, deportes, comedias, series de terror.
Ok, fabuloso.
¿Sí? ¿Series de terror? Ajá. Series de terror, muy bien. Pues Juan aprende italiano viendo series de terror en la televisión. ¿Sí?
Ok, ya.
Perfecto.
Understood.
Juan es una persona muy interesante. ¿Sí? Vale,
Sí.
perfecto.
Muy inteligente.
Ok, muy bien, perfecto. So yeah, so you see, so we're starting to create the story, yeah. And first of all, you can start with a little bit of a setup with the characters, so we talked about Juan being the main character, and we're talking about him being special and speaking 5 languages, why, and we also can talk a little bit about his personality. So that's what I like to do at the beginning. So I talk about mostly the main character, but we can talk about other characters now or start introducing them little by little as the story progresses. Okay, so that's really up to you, but it gives you a lot of content, and a lot of things to talk about with your students, because now, for example, we can start like, okay, y Juan, bueno, Juan es un hombre muy especial, sí, pero Juan es una persona introvertida o extrovertida, Aclam.
Yo creo que
Hmm.
introvertida.
Vale, perfecto. And you see again, so we're talking about his personality, but here again, the similarities between the words in Spanish and English help you understand what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's so similar. I'm impressed.
Juan es una persona introvertida, ¿sí? And we can keep talking about his personality, but we can also start with the story, with the adventures, and talk about other traits of his personality later on in the story. Okay. And one thing that really works well, that is really interesting at this point when we're starting with the story is, I talked about it in another video, that especially with adults, which is what I teach, which is who I teach, they want to learn Spanish in this case, and people who are interested in languages, they're usually interested in traveling, getting to know about other cultures and so on. So one thing that really works well with adults because of that is to talk about languages and traveling and other countries. So one thing that I think it's interesting, and it gives you a lot of content, and they're going, and your students are going to enjoy, is to talk about adventures, for example. Okay.
Okay.
Or adventures in which they have to travel the world to find a treasure or whatever it is. So let's keep going with Spanish. So
nice. Okay.
Juan, sí, espera. Ups. En este momento, sí, Juan está en su casa de Barcelona, ¿vale?
Okay.
And yeah, and again, every moment you can use it to get more in depth about the specific details. So here I could just go on and keep talking about the situation, but because this is the first time I talk about his house in Barcelona, we can talk about more details, right? So en este momento Juan está en su casa de Barcelona, ¿sí?
All right.
Y Juan vive en un apartamento en el centro, or and here you can start introducing sort of weird details, like for example,
all right,
en una tienda de campaña, ¿sí?
okay.
¿No?
Yeah, can you say it again, the word for that?
Sí, en una tienda de campaña.
All right.
¿Sí? And
okay.
Again, I'll use pictures as when necessary. En una tienda de campaña, en un parque. ¿Sí? And now, we're starting introducing more creative or weird details, right? So,
Yeah.
Juan vive en un apartamento en el centro, en una tienda de campaña, en un parque, o vive en la playa.
All right.
En la playa, and you probably know what it means, but again, if you're not sure, just go to a picture,
I think I do know.
Right.
We only say playa. We don't have another word here.
Ah, nice.
Say playa all the time.
En la playa. Perfecto. So ¿dónde vive en Barcelona? Acla, en un apartamento en el centro, en una tienda de campaña, en un parque, en la playa. ¿Qué opción prefieres? Acla, ¿sí? ¿Qué opción prefieres? ¿O tienes?
Una apartamento.
Vale. Perfecto. Un apartamento en el centro de Barcelona. ¿Sí? Perfecto.
En el centro, ok.
Muy bien. And again, you can get into more details. Juan vive en un apartamento en el centro, ¿vale? Y Juan vive solo en el apartamento, o con amigos, con un perro. Once again, I assume you know what perro means, but if I see that you don't, I'll just either look for a picture or just make the note like, whoa, just whatever it takes for you to understand. Yeah.
Okay. Creo que
sorry?
Juan, introvert. I don't know how to say it. I forgot the word.
Sin problema.
Okay.
Es una persona introvertida, ¿sí?
Yeah. Es una persona introvertida. ¿Por qué es vive solo?
Vive solo, perfecto. Tiene sentido, Aklan, tiene sentido. Muy bien. Juan vive solo en el apartamento. Muy bien, perfecto. And and here, yeah, I like to do it this way, so you choose the answers, so you feel part of the creative process as well. And then if you chose that he lives alone, right? But if you had chosen that he lives with friends, you can start talking about his friends and who does he live with, and you know what I mean? So you keep creating the story, and as new characters or new situations come up, you can continue with the action, or you can stop to ask about specific details. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Perfect. Pues Juan vive solo en el apartamento. ¿Sí? Y en este momento, Juan está navegando por internet, ¿sí? En su ordenador,
Yeah, okay.
navegando por internet y leyendo un artículo, sí, and again, leyendo, you know, and you can just use a gesture to help your students understand in case they don't know what it means. Leyendo un artículo, but again, you know, like my gesture, the context, you know.
Okay, entiendo.
Leyendo un artículo sobre una leyenda famosa, ¿sí?
Okay.
Una leyenda famosa de un tesoro. Okay. Tesoro, yes, picture, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Una leyenda famosa de un tesoro, ¿sí? Que está en el fondo del Océano Pacífico, en el fondo, ¿sí?
Yeah, got it.
Del Océano Pacífico,
Right.
cerca de Hawái.
Oh,
¿Sí?
nice.
Perfecto. So now the adventure starts, you know. And again, now you continue with the story, so you can talk about Juan reaching out to a friend because he doesn't want to try to find the treasure on its own, on his own. So he reaches out to a friend, or he calls a famous adventurer or an explorer from, I don't know, you know what I mean? Or he can even call, I don't know, like a famous explorer like Marco Polo or James Cook, right? And
nice.
And Marco Polo or James Cook traveled to the future on a time machine to help Juan, you know.
Nice.
So just like I said, with time, with experience, you get more creative, and you have ideas for different stories. So you come up with other ideas, but you can ask your students as well. Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, what else? So, and now you can start talking about what they need for their adventure. So every moment of the story is an opportunity to talk about different little things. So right now you can start talking, okay, so let's imagine that Juan llama por teléfono, ¿sí?
Okay.
Llama a James Cook, yeah, el famoso explorador,
All right.
con un teléfono mágico. Y un teléfono mágico, porque llama a James Cook al pasado, ¿sí?
Ah, okay, el pasado, okay.
El pasado es un teléfono mágico, ¿sí? Porque James Cook vivió en el pasado, ¿sí?
Okay.
Bueno. Y James Cook viaja al presente, pues es el futuro para James Cook, pero el presente para nosotros, ¿sí?
Oh, yeah, I got it now.
Con una máquina del tiempo, ¿sí?
All right.
Que inventó
Okay.
un dragón, por ejemplo. Un dragón científico, ¿sí? Científico como Albert Einstein, por ejemplo. ¿Sí?
Ah, okay.
You see, all the time I'm using real life examples, gestures, images to help you understand what I mean. That's really important, because at the end of the day, comprehensible input is the key to the entire process. If you understand what I'm saying, you're learning the process, you're learning the language. Perfecto. Vale. Y hoy, y bueno, en casa de Juan, ¿sí? James y Juan preparan todo el material necesario para la aventura. ¿Sí?
All right. Yeah. Good so far.
And yeah, I just jumped to this moment, but again, once James Cook travels to the present moment with the time machine, you can talk about potential problems that he has, that he wants to come to the present, but there's a technical problem with the time machine, so he ends up, I don't know, either farther along in the future or in a different time period. So, there's that little system of, that little idea of a new problem and trying to find a new solution to it, a new problem, that really helps you when it comes to creating more details about the story.
Yeah, okay.
Just an example, perfect. But we just jumped into James y Juan, que preparan todo el material necesario para la aventura. ¿Sí? Y no sé, ¿qué necesitan para la aventura? Necesitan, por ejemplo, un traje de buzo. ¿Sí?
Yeah, okay.
¿Sí? Porque el tesoro está en el fondo del océano Pacífico. ¿Sí?
Okay.
Perfecto.
Diving suit.
And again, for things like that are not really common, I just copy paste a picture, because now you know what it means, but maybe the next class, if you don't just place the picture, they're probably gonna forget, right? But if the picture's there all the time, they get more repetitions. Yeah. O un traje de buzo. Necesitan dinero. ¿Sí? Dinero, ¿sí? And here you can just put the symbol of the dollar, or you can talk about dinero, dólar, euro, dirham. ¿Sí?
Okay.
So your students understand. Also, again, depending on where your students are from, like if you're teaching English to your students in Morocco, if you tell them dirham, so okay, so they know what it means. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clear.
That's the currency, right? Dirham. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is it.
Perfect. Dinero. Necesitan. ¿Qué necesitan, Aklam? Necesitan. No sé.
Comer.
Sí. Necesitan comida, ¿sí?
Comida, yeah.
Vale, perfecto. ¿Y qué comida preparan? ¿Sándwiches? No sé. ¿Preparan tortillas de patata?
Bocadillo de calamares, I think.
Ah, okay. Interesante. So again, here, you know it because of the proximity with Spain, right?
Exactly, we have it here.
Yeah,
una cerveza.
Ajá, para el viaje. Ok, perfecto. So, bocadillo, calamares y cerveza. ¿Sí?
Sí.
Oh, perfecto. So, yeah, perfect. So, in this case, you know it, right? But if your students don't, you can even talk about, your culinary culture, if you may, right? I don't know, just imagine you have students from a different country, so you can actually tell them about your typical dishes from your country, right? So that's another possibility to talk about different things besides the story itself. So, you know, even within the context of science fiction stories, you can talk about real life, about things that you know they're probably going to be interested in, you know?
Okay, nice.
Like I said, you know about it, but now I could talk about tortilla de patatas, you know, que es una receta tradicional española, ¿sí?
Really? Because it's so common. I mean, we just cooked it like yesterday or something.
Ah, perfecto.
It's so common here.
So, you know, so you can get into the ingredients, into how to prepare it. You know, there's so many things you can talk about, right?
Yeah, that's nice. Okay.
Yeah, and because of the visual help, again, it's comprehensible for your students, right?
Quiero que preparado con huevos.
Sí.
Con
sí.
Patate, I think.
Correcto, correcto. Huevos, sí. Patatas, sí. Y este ingrediente es opcional, Aklam, sí, pero
Okay.
a mí me gusta, que es cebolla.
Ah, okay.
Es un ingrediente opcional, ¿vale? O sea,
Sí.
huevos y patatas son los más importantes. Pero a mí me gusta con cebolla, ¿sí?
All right, sweet, nice.
But, you know, just to show the example, we're creating the story, but we just stop to talk about real life things that you might be interested in, right? Or they can also prepare paella, you know? So again,
Okay.
if another opportunity to talk about the culture from your country, you know?
Paella.
Paella.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
¿Con pescado?
Con pescado, con carne, con verduras, hay diferentes opciones.
Okay, nice.
Una combinación de carne y verduras, hay muchas diferentes opciones.
No tenemos esta plato de...
Ajá.
No tenemos paella con pescados.
Sí, tenéis couscous también, ¿sí?
Y couscous, harira.
Muy bien. Sí, traje de buzo, dinero, comida, bueno, bocadillos de calamares. Sí, que eso es una aventura, ¿sí? Y necesitan, again, sorry, like one, like as you're creating the story, you can also introduce like little quick bizarre details again. So they need 200 bocadillos de calamares, for example.
Okay.
You know, like things that sound ridiculous, but I think it adds interest to the story, right?
Yeah, it makes it so interesting.
200 bocadillos de calamares y 200 cervezas, por ejemplo, ¿no? Y también necesitan, bueno, necesitan mochilas, Aklam, sí.
Okay.
Perfecto. So again, it's a good opportunity to talk about different objects and so on. And because I'm using the picture and then the context of the adventure itself, you also understand what I'm talking about. You know?
Una cuchilla, I think.
Cuchilla.
Maybe.
Para cortar los bocadillos.
Exactamente.
Ah, perfecto, perfecto. Cuchillos para cortar los bocadillos. Perfecto. Sí, los calamares gigantes. Oh.
Okay.
200 bocadillos de calamares gigantes. ¿Sí?
Oh, all right.
Again, another ridiculous detail to help it make it more interesting. Yeah. All right. So, in the next episode, we'll talk about, we'll continue with the story. We'll talk about more things that they need for the trip. Okay. But do you see what I mean? With making it comprehensible and interesting.
Yeah, I think this is like so accurate, I can relate to this because first of all, it's fun. I don't feel like I'm like stressed out, like the grammar, like this is,
exactly.
I really like this. I will definitely use this while teaching. Like, inshallah, when I will become a teacher, I will follow this approach. And there's one thing that I will make sure to do. I'm gonna include many ridiculous details because they just so funny and makes it, enjoyable, make the process enjoyable. I love that.
And you picture them in your head, like, because we talked about bocadillos de calamares, right? But once you say that 200, you actually you start imagining the situation, like they just pack them packing sandwiches one after the other,
Yeah.
And with the giant squids and yeah.
Love that so much.
And all right, so any questions about any of the things that I tried to explain things as we went into it, but any question, anything you have in mind?
Well, related to the story or just to Spanish learning in general?
No, about teaching, meaning like why did you do that, or why, or what do you think I should do in this situation, things like that. Anything that came to mind, or
like how am I supposed to know how much vocabulary should I include? How to know the right vocabulary? Because sometimes you told me you need to challenge your student, so you know when to put this is vocabulary they're not gonna know what does it mean, and this they're gonna know what does it mean.
Right.
You have this sense, you can sense it.
So
how can you sense it?
Yeah, good question. First of all, when I have new students, usually we do like a short demo the first day, so I get to see firsthand how much they can understand or what the level is. I mean, they would tell me beforehand, but I want to check what the level is, how much they can understand, and so on. All right. And then again, with time, you get more experience at understanding, okay, if I use this specific word, they're going to understand. If I use this other one, they're probably not. Okay. So you get better at it. But like I said, the most important thing is to make it comprehensible for them, right? So you saw we use a lot of new words here, but because of the context of the story and the pictures, it doesn't look like a struggle for you, the student, because you understand what we're talking about, right? And it's also important to let your students know that they're not supposed to memorize the words. Okay, like we're using this new vocabulary, okay, and you perfectly understand what it means, but I don't want you to memorize it. Like, don't worry, because I, as a teacher, will make sure that we use these words several more times so you actually remember them after enough repetitions, okay? And then finally, I don't like to target specific words or sentences before the class. I like going with the flow, because as we're creating the story, I think I'm going to use Spanish in a natural way without having to think about specific structure that I'm going to use or specific words. So we just went with an adventure, all right? So naturally, we need to talk about traje de buzo, which is not a super common word, right? But it's relevant in the story. Or dinero, you know what I mean? So I don't worry too much about using specific words, or they need to learn this word. No, I like going with the flow, because naturally the most common words are going to come up naturally, right? Because that's how we communicate, you know? And I think that takes more stress out of the equation for you as a teacher. So you don't really need to think about that every single class, you know, just talk in the target language. That's what your students need.
Okay.
Yeah. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yeah. But there's one thing, like, do you think I should use storytelling as the main method, or maybe I could use other thing beside it? But what do you think is the most effective one? I mean, this is amazing, obviously, but I would love to know your opinion.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is the resource I use for the most part, because for several reasons, you know, because it's really close to a natural conversation. You can talk about pretty much anything. It's interesting and so on, right? But you can use other resources. I'll give you a couple of examples now, and we'll use them in future sessions. Okay, but yeah. So other resources that I'm using is board games, for example. You know, so the thing is, I like to think about resources or ideas that are real life ideas, yeah, in which the message is the most important thing. So, for example, I'm playing board games with my students, right? So I learn the rules beforehand, before the class. So I teach them the rules in the target language, in Spanish, in my case, right? And the good thing about board games is, first of all, they're interesting as well. And because of the visual help of the different components, you know, it's easier to understand what I'm talking about, because I'm telling, so you need to move this piece around over here in order to produce this specific resource, you know, like the context of the game, right? But you can also talk about real life. You can talk about your life, you know, about a trip you made to Casablanca, for example, you know.
Okay.
So you can talk about it. The most important thing for you as a teacher, you need to talk about it in a way that is comprehensible for them. That's it, right? Then you can think about making it more interesting. That's where stories come into play, or games, you know. But there are other activities or resources you can use besides storytelling. But like I said, we'll get into that in future episodes.
Okay.
But in general, just any real life situation that you think your students might be interested in, first of all, and that it really helps them take their attention off of grammar and form and focus on the message. But I'll show you examples in the future, no worries.
Okay, I'm excited for that. I mean, this was very fruitful, really, because I've learned so much, really, because I think I usually, like, the last week I've been trying to listen a little bit to Spanish, and the fact that, I mean, for the first time I do realize that the reason why I've learned English is because I've never stressed about it. Yeah, I was just having fun watching movies, listening to music. I never was like, no, I need to learn English because I need that, and I'm gonna use the same method with Spanish. So inshallah, one day I will be able to talk Spanish fluido.
Of course you will, but yeah, it didn't feel like learning, right?
English. No, at all.
That's it. That's key. Yeah. All right, Aglan. So thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it. I think you did. And yeah, so we'll continue with a new episode. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to say muchas gracias. Este es muy interesante.
Perfecto, de nada.